There we go. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Bob and Frank, episode number 24.
24.
We should actually be at 25 because we already did an episode with Andrew Campoli here. Got flushed down the drain. Not sure what happened to it. Grego, anything to say about that?
Well, our tech guy is a goof. I blame him.
Yeah. Blame producer Tim. We've been going off about Hockey Canada. We need some more insight. We're bringing on not only a two-time OJ champion as a head coach of the Collingwood Blues, also winning the national title last year. Heavy favorites, in my opinion, at least. That's what my bet is at Bet365. No free ads. 3 in a row OJ champion, first ever. Is that right, Andrew? Welcome to the Bob and Frank podcast, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me. Sucks on the first episode get deleted, but I mean, I thought it was a good one. But round 2 is going to be good too, so that's awesome. I hope heavy favorites. A three-peat hasn't been done in our league before, so
unreal.
Huge. Gotta love that pressure as a head coach.
Pressure's a privilege, man.
Yeah,
100%. Last time we spoke, it was right before the season started. We really went through the Collingwood Blues playbook, but recently you got an opportunity, assistant coach of World Junior A Challenge Team Canada. Congrats on that, and just wanted to ask you, how was the experience overall getting the first time call with Team Canada?
It was awesome. The whole process is kind of cool. I've been putting my name in the hat the last few years, and they kind of finally picked on me, which was nice. And getting flown out there, everything was taken care of behind the scenes, and we actually had our training camp. So we flew at about 30 guys. And we had our training camp at Winsport facility, which is like Hockey Canada's head office. So all those Hockey Canada drills that are videotaped, that's where that rink is. And the facility there is just top notch. They have an entire room full of all their trophies, all the swag. It's absolutely phenomenal. You're treated like an absolute, just a celebrity and a pro.
Nice.
The equipment room is wild. Just sliding doors of equipment, just whole rooms. And I'm like, I know where all those OJHL fees and all those Hockey Canada fees go. It was crazy the amount of stuff. They had 3 full-time equipment guys just for Hockey Canada for us to get set up with stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, right, I bet.
When you started coaching, I think it was 2014 or 2015 when we talked about it the last time.
Yeah.
So you started for the first time coaching in the GTHL with U18 Markham Majors AAA when you were 20, and those 2 years, were you thinking, "Yep, I think I'm going to be coaching for Team Canada"?
No,
10 years.
No. No. I think you get into it because I got injured and I wanted to stay in the game, and I loved coaching. I loved the aspect of developing people. And my dad told me I was absolutely nuts kind of when I signed up to coach. And I get it now, looking back, retrospect and hindsight's 2020. But I didn't know how in-depth and involved I'd get to a level where, I didn't get to put on the nation's colors as a player and as a goalie, but throwing on the suit, the red tie, iconic red tie, and the Canada pin, that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Sweet. The World Junior A Challenge, for anyone who doesn't know, and myself included, if the World Junior Championship is Tier 1, would the World Junior A Challenge be Tier 2?
I think that's the best way to explain it. You have the World Juniors, right? You have, Tier 1 Junior, Major Junior, all that kind of stuff. It's hard, though, because when we got there, last year, Canada, East and Canada West made it to the finals together, right? So,
yep.
And if you look at the rosters, the team that US and team that Sweden sent, I wouldn't say they were as deadly as the ones that we got in this tournament this year. And this year they came with all USHL guys for Team USA, right? And to me, USHL and the OJ, a little bit of a different caliber. Every team has guys that are committed throughout the entire roster in the USHL for the most part. And we don't have that many commitments in our league. Most of them are on our team, right? They're the top 3 or 4 teams. Mm-hmm. And Team Sweden literally brought their Helinka team. So, I mean, it's definitely the right tier. However, I think depth wise and skill wise, there's a bit of a difference between USHL and our level.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. Just like obviously everyone playing on Team Canada East and West, no one is in the CHL. No one's in the Q or the OHL or the WHL.
Correct. Now they can AP, but they can't be a assigned player.
Right. And for the US, what's the cutoff? Like why are some, like if you play NCAA, you can't be in the World Junior A Challenge? Is that like a cutoff for them?
Yeah. So basically USHL, same age group, 05 to 08. That's who's invited to the World Junior A Challenge. And again, like no NCAA can't come back, play, half a year of NCAA, come back to USHL, just USHL only.
Yeah. And who knows the rules for Sweden and Finland and all that?
I don't know, but they were huge, man. Like Sweden had Anton Frondell in the team. And I don't know if you guys have looked at the NHL watch list and draft, but he's like top 5 pick overall.
Okay.
And he's a 2007 born, and I'm like, they feed these guys like raw elk or something. They're huge. Yeah, he was massive. He was 6'4". The kid had a 1T like OV, and I'm like,
D-man or forward?
He was a forward.
Okay,
he was a forward. He was a centerman, and he's just huge. And like you can tell, like they carry themselves as pros. Like even the U.S. team. The U.S. team had already 6 guys that were drafted in the NHL, and another 10 that were going to be drafted this year. Mm-hmm. And we had 0. Like my goalie in Collingwood's on the NHL watch list for this coming draft. He's like ranked 14th overall, but which is great. But he was the closest one to us having an NHL draft pick.
Mm-hmm. That's tough.
It's tough. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So, at what point? Like my next question was how far off were you from the talent level with the other countries? Obviously coming up short of a gold and. Playing Team Canada East or Team Canada West for bronze. Going into the tournament, did you know that you were a little bit outmatched? Was it just kind of a realization as the tournament went on?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because as a coach, you never want to say that to the players. Right, that's the first thing. And the second thing was in a world where we live in such a social media and internet-friendly space, you can imagine that the guys actually mentally screw themselves a little bit. And the reason why is because as soon as they find out who's on their roster, they're elite prospecting everybody, right? And right off the hop, and it's mental warfare, right? You're like, oh my God, they have 7 guys drafted already, like 3rd round of Vegas, 4th round of Vancouver. And we're sitting here, we're like, well, we had a guy that maybe scored 15 points in Tier 2 Junior A, right? And it's tough because like, it's a 1-game tournament, right? Like you have your round robin, and then, out of 4 teams, you play a semifinal game. So 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. We played US in the semis. Okay. They beat us, I think, like 8-1 or 8-0 in the round robin. We lost 3-2. And I mean, 1 bounce either way, I would say it's a different game. We gave them a heck of a run. Like, I wouldn't say they were, when you pressured them and you didn't respect how good they were, right? And you kind of got them into the alleyway and you got to, kind of fought them the right way and kind of battled them the right way. They crumbled a little bit because they're high skill, right? Like even the Swedish team, like very, very high skill. And, the Swedish team was a bit different. Like they're 07s, like the entire team other than their goalie. And all of our guys mostly were 05s and 06s. And I said, guys, like you guys are in university. These guys are in grade 12. Like let's just get out there and bully them, like hit them, like time they get the puck in their face. And I mean, even in that game for us, it worked really well. I think we lost by 2 goals and a couple of soft ones, but it's tough because you think you're outmatched and then you play those games and adrenaline takes over. And we called it the reverse miracle. Like we just wanted like the reverse miracle. We want to knock off US, right? And it didn't happen, but we gave them a good game.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting you say that about all the, looking up the hockey DBs and kind of freaking yourself out, and all of a sudden you're questioning yourself if you belong, but at the same time you kind of turn up to compete, and all of a sudden you're right there in a hockey game.
That's it.
We were ranting on a previous episode with the results from the World Juniors this past year. I don't want to give any biases as to what we were saying. Let's just get a at First Take, what's the deal with back-to-back quarterfinal exits?
Well, I'm a second-time caller, long-time listener, so I know what you said. So I won't take that into consideration. I mean, listen, seeing how like what Team US and Team Sweden like firsthand, even in the World Junior A Challenge, you can tell that there's a level of professionalism, and Hockey Canada does a great job of that too. And I'm not knocking Hockey Canada on that. I do think though there's a big difference in some of the development that's happening now for sure. I mean, when I look at it, and I look at the tournament overall, and I look at the coaching staffs and their plan, how they develop when they get together versus Hockey Canada when we get together, even for our team, there's a lot more time spent with some of those other countries, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even if you look at some of the coaching staff and the philosophies and how they play, like when we were with Hockey Canada likes to play a certain structure, right? A certain way, a certain swagger. If you kind of watch World Juniors over the years, you find a lot of the same style, right? And I think the one thing that is different is, the guy who coached the US, 35 years old, bit of a different philosophy than Dave Cameron. Dave Cameron's a good coach. He had one younger assistant coach, and he had the guy from Portland on the bench too. And like, I just think it's a bit different. The game's changed, and the game's evolved, and I don't know 1,000% if some of the staff that they're picking or some of the direction or the duration of the time that they're together, like if they're serious about winning, they need to give them a couple weeks together, 3 weeks minimum. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like I knew somebody who was on the team and some of the practices and all that kind of stuff, and I heard some rumblings, and I mean, they did a good job, but I mean, it's tough when you grow up watching Hockey Canada and then put on that logo, and then to be disappointed 2 years back to back in the quarterfinals. There's a lot of pressure on those guys. Like, don't get me wrong, And I listen, our tournament is very, very small compared to the one that the World Juniors in Ottawa there, but you still feel pressure. Like when you put on that logo and that jersey, there is a bit of like hairs on end, little goosebumps. And you got to be able to calm the nerves. And the only way you get that is you make sure your team is over prepared for them to go to battle. And I don't know if that's happening. You know what I mean?
I'd love to talk about the preparation after this. Hopefully we don't lose our train of thought. But we were kind of ranting about the physicality and how, you look at the dominant stretches of World Junior Hockey by Canada. It's fast-paced physical hockey, and it's intimidating. I didn't watch a lot of the games, but I watched the U.S. game, I watched the Germany game, I watched the Czech game. There was no intimidation factor, in my opinion. You kind of brought up Team Canada's structures, there's a bit of a template, whatever year you're watching. Do you think that Team Canada needs to adapt and change their style of play, or do they think they need more bona fide physical players instead of being outmatched talent-wise, skill-wise by the Americans and, other countries?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call because, like, listen, I think the first rumbling of when they made the World Junior team was the fact that a few guys got left off the list.
Right.
And I mean, that's the first thing, right? Like, there's already guilt being shed right off the hop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's tough. And I understand how media works and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think you're ever going to appease everybody on the roster. And there's a difference between building an all-star team and a championship team, right? Because there is a big difference in my mind anyway. And I mean, getting players to play roles that they don't normally play, that's huge. You got to get the right guys to buy in. That's the first thing. In terms of like structure and stuff like that, I really just think you have to know who you're up against. And I think there has to be a lot of homework when it comes down to that. And I mean, I think like in those short tournaments, special teams is massive, like absolutely massive. Yeah. And I mean, like their power play wasn't great. I think it was like putrid, to be honest with you. And, that hurts. If you want to be in those small tournaments, those short tournaments, you got to have amazing special teams. And yeah, not only do you have to, be really good on 5-on-5, but you got to be disciplined. And I think some of the penalties that Canada took were kind of tough ones to take.
Yeah, last 2 minutes of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, situationally, it's just tough, right? Like, I think you expect more out of some of those guys. And like what I think happens is the light gets very bright, right? Emotions get very high. And you have to be able to control emotion. And the hard part is if like some of these players that are on like their own CHL teams, if they're not being, I wouldn't say controlled, but held accountable for some of their actions, they're only going to do the exact same thing at a national level to a coach that's never really coached them before.
Yep.
And it's tough. So, I mean, I think the structure is fine, to be honest. Like, I think if it's Canada's game that they want to play, be confident, be prepared to play your game in structure. But you got to hammer down the special teams, which takes time. You got to hammer down the culture in the room, which, again, is really hard to do after a week or 2 weeks, right? You need that 3 week. Like some of the other programs in other countries, they hire full-time World Junior coaches or U18 coaches or U17 coaches that go to World Championships. You're talking full-time, right? So it's a bit different when you have a coach who, Dave Cameron and his staff jump in and they got 2.5 weeks maybe, and that's after they make cuts.
Right.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's crazy how in like the soccer world, all the professional leagues just know it's international break. You got to go back to your teams and regroup as a nation and work together type of thing. We brought up the program they have in the U.S. Grade 11, grade 12 kids are top kids in the country are all training together, playing together with a split USHL and NCAA season. Do you think that gets USA ahead of the curve as opposed to the way our junior program works, and the top kids don't really come together that often?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like, even if you look at major junior for us, right? I mean, we get a lot of drop downs, right, in our level at tier 2 or junior A. And I would say the one thing that is consistent with most of the guys that drop down is the OHL's beating them up, like major juniors beating them up. And what I mean by that is like, I talk a lot about like player development, personal development, spending a lot of time with our hockey teams and stuff like that. I understand like, the OHL is a business, and a good friend of mine just bought an OHL team, right? The Hymans just, bought, Brantford. Right. And, I talked to Stu and Spencer a little bit on that, congratulate them. But like, you have to put a lot of time and effort, right, into your players and developing them. And I think in the OHL, if you look at some of the best programs like London, right, the Hunters do a great job at it. And I think other teams are tough because other teams rely on their top 5-6 players, right, to play 25, 26 minutes. I mean, everyone's got Instat nowadays. Just go onto an OHL team, pull up their minutes, see what your depth guys are getting in minutes, see how many games they're playing. And if they're not developed properly, they come down with this like, shitty attitude that, the OHL screwed me, this and that, and all that kind of stuff. Some of the guys aren't wrong. You know what I mean? Like I've had guys in our dressing room that like spent 3 years in the O, 4 years in the O, then come down to their last year or half year with us. And like, it's the best time I've ever had because like, I felt part of a team. You know what I mean? I felt that culture. So it's really tough that, the guys sometimes that you're getting in these tournaments are the top guys or the roosters in each club. And, they rule the roost in their own club. And there's a bit of a, let's call it a power struggle maybe, or a culture struggle. And they're in that national dressing room, right? And that shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there is more familiarity with the group. They'd understand their roles and they'd be happy for each other more than just getting together last minute and everyone's a little bit more focused on their individual goals.
It's tough. It's tough. Like, I'll give you a great example. So this new NCAA rule that just happened, right, with guys now being able to play major junior and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, open borders.
Yeah, open borders. Like you guys, I heard you guys too, right? So like that's crazy. But I mean, we had guys like that flocked from our league right away to, an OHL signing or an AP signing. And what some of these guys don't realize is that the grass isn't always greener, right? And you have to really understand what your end goal is. And some guys just want to go the O for a jersey that they're going to hang up in their basement with their last name on it because it's such a status play. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, like, we live in a world where everybody's profile is based off of Instagram and happy moments and status moments. And, the kids are eating this up. So how do you tell a kid not to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
You said something, Spencer, about preparation. And you said you hope we don't forget. Did you cover that?
Yeah, just kind of in regards to that there are so many players from the U.S. National Development Program that end up in the World Juniors. and they have so much familiarity. They have spent time off the ice and gotten to know each other personally. They've played so many games together. And then Team Canada, like you just said, you bring in all the Roosters, and it's kind of hard to figure out how to be a legit team under a short time frame. Is there anything you can think of that Hockey Canada should do to have next year's World Junior team more, prepared?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can kind of look at it too, and you can maybe do like something in the off season a bit to try to get guys together. I mean, like at the end of the day, if you look at guys like McKenna and all that kind of stuff, they were on the World Championship. Like you have some of the same guys that play in the same tournaments as their 17, 18, and U20, right? So like if you're going to do that, get them together a bit more frequently. If you know who's going to be, and like maybe you have a couple of fringe guys, if the core itself, and that's 12, 13 guys are the same for every U17, U18 World Championship, and now World Juniors, then get them doing something in the summers. You know what I mean? Like get them building that camaraderie, that culture. Because once you have like, if you lead by a group, it's so much easier to get the 2 or 3 stragglers to get to buy in, right? If you go in and everybody's an individual and you're trying to get a group status in a culture fairly quickly, it is very, very tough. 25 personalities, everybody, like at the end of the day, believe it or not, everybody's got some sort of ego, right? Everybody does. Right. And it's just up to that player if he wants to show it or not, or how big or how small that ego is. But, there's a bunch of NHL draft picks on that team. Well, they're going to have a bit of an ego. And can they play nice with guys that are drafted either higher than them, equal to them, maybe have signed already a contract somewhere else? Like, you know what I mean? Like they have to be able to be one. And I think that's a big thing for us. I mean, back-to-back OJ champs and a Natty champ. And our mentality is you play for the guy in the next stall. It has nothing to do with your logo, nothing to do with your name. Like, you do not let your teammates down. You can let me down. You want to get late to practice, no problem. We'll sit you. You want to disappoint me, that's fine. I'm a coach. I get it. Like, I'll deal with disappointment. But, like, you got to look your teammates in the eyes every day. You got to sit next to them in the stalls. Do not let those guys down.
Clip it.
Clip
that one. 2020, 22, 28. Speaking of the Collingwood Blues, last time we spoke preseason, we went through the whole playbook. What a treat. I did bring it up today. I was looking through. I don't know if we need to screen share it again, but I just wanted to ask, prior to the season, you've got, quite a bit of structure in there, very detailed, impressive. You got all those face-off plays. Are the same plays being executed at this point in the year, or has a lot of that gone out the window?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do a training camp at the halfway point of every year. So the guys go home for Christmas break. We use last games like 22nd, 23rd. They come back on the 2nd and 3rd, and we put them through like a full training camp again. Nice. And again, D zone 1 day, O zone, line rush, all that kind of stuff. And we actually added a few set plays. But the key is actually, if you look at all those set plays, every set play has more than one option. So where at the beginning of the season is you're looking for that one option, right? That one option. Now, as you get through it, now you're a little deeper in your 40 games. Now you're looking for that second or third option because now everyone's running their routes correctly, right? So like for us, there's a play in the O-zone called wheel where our strong side D like wheels down the wall. Our board side winger gets the net to open up that lane. Well, beginning of the season, that D's throwing that on net or keeping it and going around the net, hitting that weak side defenseman, right? Now, as an example, all the teams are kind of bought into like what we're doing. So now that D takes it to the half, like to the hash, and then flips it back up to the centerman who's covering it. Now that center's created time and space off of his guy, and he can attack the net or go weak side D. So it's really some of the same plays, just different options, right?
Yep.
And a couple of new ones.
Nice. Yeah, no, we just had a practice tonight, and we've run the same O-zone face-off play the whole year. Have the board side winger swing behind the D-men, and we do a little drop pass. And it's great that we still run the same play, but there's, pretty much like 8 options plus by the time we've built in from August till now, and it's kind of same thing but different.
100%.
Yeah. In terms of your team, Grego's team, Niagara North for U10, first place. Whitby Wildcats, U10, first place, gunning for the championship. Your experience, you won back-to-back OJ titles, but first time around, how far did you get in the national championship tournament?
Lost in the quarters.
Lost in the quarters. Return the following year and take it down. Anything, what was different between the 2 years that you won the national title and came a little bit short?
Yeah. I mean, I think every year to win a championship, you need a couple things. One, I think you need a good goalie, right? That's. I think you got to be healthy. That's another thing. And I think you need a little bit of luck. And I mean, luck is kind of, put a slash there and throw experience on the other side of luck, because I think you learn a lot from experiences, right? That's why, Navy SEALs train 90% of the time. They get thrown in, they know what they're doing because they've trained, for that 90%, right? So you rise and fall to the level of your training, which I think is key. But for us, going into the first year in Portage, I don't think we knew what we were getting into. We had a great round robin. We went 3-1, and we were 30 seconds away from skipping the quarterfinals, going right to the semis, and we would have played Brooks in the semis. And I mean, till this day, I'm dying to play Brooks. You know what I mean? I want a piece of them so bad. But you know what I mean? We're 30 seconds away. They score. They pull their goalie. They score to win the game, and we go down the quarters. And I think that deflated us a bit because we really didn't battle adversity for most of that first year.
Yeah.
And we weren't healthy. We lost one of our assistant captains early. We lost another guy first shift in the tournament with a AC joint. So we weren't really healthy. And there was game day skates and there was meals and this, and you're trying to sort out what's the best program, what's the best schedule. And you're trying to make sure that, rest is a big thing in these short tournaments at the same time. And, I look back, hindsight's 2020. I look back and maybe it could have changed a couple of things. Our people was atrocious. We went 1 for 19 in that tournament on the power.
Oh no.
Awful. And like I said to you, when we talked about World Juniors, special teams are massive at those short tournaments, but we were second year, one big difference because it was on Olympic sheet. I love Olympic ice, especially with a team as aggressive and offensively gifted as we are, because you just have extra room, right? And you skate well and whatever. But the big thing was we didn't do any game day skates at all. The year before, we took advantage of all that. Big difference too was, we ended up taking their phones away the moment they got to the rink instead of having them listen to music and stuff like that. So that was a big thing. Just little things like that. And then we went 6-0 in the tournament. And I mean, one of the massive differences was our power play was 48%. You know what I mean? Our PK was 92%. So special teams was massive. And I also think we had a bit of a deeper team. We had guys that have tasted defeat at a national level. And we sat down, going into that national championship run, and we sat down. And I mean, as a coach, you have a few defining moments in your career. And, a couple of my defining moments for me, as an example, were going to this national championship and having a different mindset, changing the way we did things. And then even the finals, I knew what we were up against in Saskatchewan, and they're a great hockey team, the Melfort Mustangs. And I changed my lines that I didn't change all playoffs and all round robin and all quarters and semis for that national championship final game. And there was a reason I did it. I watched enough video and I realized I was going age on age. I didn't want my young guys up the lineup. I wanted the older guys to play against their older guys. And I mean, we won 1-0 on a power play goal. And it's a surreal feeling. My wife and kid were on the ice, celebrating with us. And, it's surreal to see, you sit down with a group of guys. And this is what I said in my speech getting on the ice, for that last game. I'm I've seen a bunch of guys start off as individuals with a goal in mind, and we are here with an opportunity to win this thing, and we are a fucking family. Probably want to bleep that out, but you know what I mean. And that's what it is. Those guys played for each other, right? And that was it. And winning a championship as a player, I've won some minor hockey stuff or whatever, a tournament here or there. Winning a national championship or a championship as a coach, it is an emotional roller coaster on a different level. Knowing that you were able to help 25, 30 guys become one with one common goal and basically created lifelong bonds. That stuff's it's magic. It's crazy. Like, I still think about it. Like, when there's videos on YouTube and stuff like that, my kid watches highlights. He loses his mind, runs up and down the hall, scores goals, yells, celebrates when we lift up the trophy in the highlights. Like, it's crazy, but it's probably one of the best feelings in the world.
Awesome.
Unreal. Congratulations.
Yeah,
it's
congrats.
nice having all the videos of that with this day and age.
Yeah. We had a videographer. So we had a guy, he created a 3-minute trailer for us to show at our ring ceremony. Actually, I should have brought the rings to show you guys on camera, but they're upstairs. But he did a 3-minute like trailer video, and then he's putting together like a 65-minute documentary of the national championship. So it's pretty
unreal. Cool. Unreal.
Yeah. Right on. Whoops. Not a big deal. Just Grego's just slotted himself into the head coach role of Niagara Predators. You got to love to see it.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Long time coming. And Grego, you got anything for camps here in terms of starting off your junior coaching career there?
I got too many questions. First, all that accountability stuff that you're talking about, and 2014 you started. It's been over 10 years. The generation is different already in these 10 years. Would you say?
100%.
And is accountability big in that? Is it much more difficult? You're pulling the phones away. That's such an interesting thought.
Yeah. So it's funny. We did it this year for our team. So our rule now is like, you come to the rink and your phone goes in a bag, which is in my office. And as long as you're here in the room, right, around you don't touch it. When you want it, you leave, right? If you want to go check it from time to time in case like someone's calling you, whatever, no problem. But you check it like in my office, right? And it's funny because like FanDuel, Bet365, I mean, these kids have all access to gamble on their phone, and a lot of them are over 18. So like it's hard to say no to adults, right? And you got to just put situations, because they were like half the first quarter of the season, they were all in their stalls, like on their phones during like before practice and all that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what, enough with that. We took that away. 2 days later, after the new rule, I have guys like wearing our backup goalie's pads in the room, like playing shinny in the dressing room. I'm like, that's it. Like, that's exactly what I want. You know what I mean? Like, but that's how you
bang on.
You know what I mean? That's exactly what you wanted. So I would say it's tougher for sure. There's a lot of deflection with these guys, right? There's a lot of somebody else's fault. It's Jim's fault. It's Spencer's fault. It's Grego's fault.
Mm-hmm.
I teach them the first day they get to camp. I'm like, learn the phrase, "I'm sorry, I screwed up." Right? That's paraphrasing. It's a little better than that, but you know what I mean? Like, I want them to own it. And like even practice today, we had a guy, like we have an ODR, which is like right next to our rink, and everyone's just on the ice for practice. I'm like, where's Eric? And I look around, and one of the guys tells me, he's like, oh, you know what? He was on the ODR. He forgot his skates. He left, got here, went back home to get it. Kid was 3 minutes late for practice. He's not playing this weekend. You know what I mean? Like, it's just own it. Like, you manage your time. You guys can gamble on your phones. You guys can drive cars. Half you guys can vote. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't take excuses.
Good for you. Good. That my next question.
Predators that are listening in right now are shaking in their boots.
They're shaking in their boots right now. I'm in a situation where I've got 8 games left in the year as a new head coach. I just hopped on. What would you say? And maybe the answer is simply what you do at the start of your season, or maybe not. What would you say are the most important things to nail in, if I can only start with a few, with your team?
Yeah, I mean, first one is establish what like hard work means to you and work ethic means. Like, I mean, put them in a compete practice. I mean, get them racing after pucks, first touch drill, second quick stuff. Like, understand that they have to play quick with pace and compete. Because with 8 games left, you're not going to be able to build a ton of structure. Right. But the big thing is you got to get guys working hard for 6 minutes, right? And that to me is like, that's the first one, is get them to compete, get them to, like, because even like that competition in practice, that breeds championship teams. Like, if they haven't competed that hard in practice before, although it's tough, it is going to bring them together a bit more. So, I mean, that's the first one. I don't know if you've done like team building events, when you were assistant coach or whatever, but like those little things to me, like, we do a share circle every year, and it's something I kind of incorporated in my program about 3-4 years ago. Actually, it was 4 years ago. And we tell guys we're going to have a practice and all that kind of stuff. And I say, okay, before you get dressed, I'll come in and just have a quick meeting with you guys, bring them upstairs to our lounge. I have all the chairs kind of in a circle. And we kind of just talk about like things in life that's bothered us, things of where we come from, our story, our origin story, like, things that I talked about my son and my wife and all that kind of stuff. And, by the end of it, you have 90% of the guys in tears because they're given a space to be emotional, right? Or to get things out. Because let's be honest here, as hockey players, I mean, any pro sport, athlete, whatever, you're made to kind of look and feel a certain way, right? There's cameras on you, there's this on you, there's a status, yada, yada, yada. And like for a lot of guys, that fills up their pop can and they don't know how to deal with it. So for us, and I always find that when we do that, and it's actually ours is next week. I always find that as soon as we do that, our team goes on a rampage. Like 2 years ago, we went 10-1 in 11 games. Before that, we were like, I don't know, 12-2. So like you go on a run for each other because now you that little bit of vulnerability helps. But I would say, effort one, team building, kind of get them to obviously, gel as a team.
Yep.
And then just basic structure, like like what do you want the reps to be on a line rush, right? Are you an effort drive team, right? Are you cut to the middle, isolate D2? Like, what do you want their fundamentals to be? And then hammer that for the next 3 weeks, right? So even though there's how many line rushes happen in a game? Well, if they hammer their work ethic, the effort, and the routes that you want them to run and do it with pace, you'll beat 95% of the teams, right? So just that basic stuff. And then the last one I would say is just owning that D zone, like understand how to transition from defense to offense quick, because in this game, the least amount of time that you can spend in your zone, the better it is, right? Guys, love to play in the O zone and call that the fun zone, but guys want to just start rimming pucks. Like hockey's a game of possession, right?
Yes.
Want the puck, keep the puck, like manage the puck. And I think if you guys can learn how to do that in the D zone, that transition comes a lot quicker. Then you're spending a lot more time pushing the pace and having fun in the O zone.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Having those conversations with your team, how do you start that conversation?
The circle chat one?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's the script for it. Like, to be honest with you, like I basically just say, hey guys, like, we're here just to have a conversation. I want everybody, if you're comfortable, to share something about your life, your past, who you are. And I always go first because I'm the icebreaker, right? Like I'm the coach. I'm the one that's putting this together. So, I mean, the first year, my parents were split up when I was 3 years old. So I talked about that and kind of how that affected me the first year. Guys have been on our team the last 3 years, so they've seen 3 different stories with me, right? And last year was, dealing how to understand and time management with, a wife and a new kid in hockey, and be almost quitting hockey because I couldn't manage it and work. I have a full-time job, and, you kind of humanize yourself a little bit. I think that's certainly important, but like, there's not really a script. Like we had guys talk about, their mothers who had a drinking problem, a dad that told his son that, he wasn't worth, his weight in hockey and he should quit and hang him up. Like you had guys getting really deep. You know what I mean? And that to me is massive because they feel like this is a safe space to talk. And like I said, they just open up to you and you get a sense of like onus. And I remember like even the kid that won the championship that his dad said he wasn't great or whatever, like won a championship and his dad was pumped and he told his dad like, I am worth it. You know what I mean? Like just that cool stuff that like movie shit, you know what I mean? That you just kind of be part of, like, that's some cool stuff.
For sure it is. For sure.
Good for you guys to be doing that year after year.
Yeah. It's just different, man. It's just different. Like you have to pivot. Like you have to think of it like a business, right? At the end of the day, if you're selling a product and somebody else kind of makes a better product or a cheaper product version of yours, how do you pivot? Like, do you have a better structure? Do you have a better system? What's your value add? And I mean, to us, our mentality is like we want to make positive and productive members of society that come out of our program, because hockey is amazing. We want our guys to get commits. We had a couple commits in the last couple of weeks, and these guys are going to go to university and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, whether it's after university or 3 years after university when they're playing European hockey or whatever, the journey is going to end. Like I asked our guys all the time, like, what do you want to be remembered for in our program? Like when 10 years comes down the road and you bring your family back to look at Collingwood because it's been such a home to you and look at the banners, like, what do you want to be remembered for if you're walking down the street and the kid that looked up to you in the stands that you gave a stick to is now sees you? You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's important stuff because, you leave it better than you found it. And to me, like you're on this earth for, X amount of time. You don't really know. And I mean, I can look back and I'm happy about my life. I'm happy about the past, and I'm happy about the impact I've had on the younger generation.
Awesome.
Love it. Sounds like a great culture there in Collingwood.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
This is third season?
This is fourth
3.5?
season of the team. I joined it. I was an assistant coach, kind of like Grego. The guy got asked to leave or left on his own terms, whatever that is, and then I took over at Christmas. So 3.5 years as head coach, 4 years total.
Wow. And was that tough when you took over mid-season?
So it's the second time I've had to do it.
Yeah.
First time was with Stouffville. The second time, I mean, it's a bit of a different relationship. I mean, Andre was the first one. Like in Spence, Andre, obviously, like he was our head coach, and then he bailed before the first game of the regular season, so that was a little tight. But I'm sure you can razz him on that when you see him.
Yeah, I can't wait.
But like this, it was tough because like, I'm really good friends with the guy that I replaced. And I didn't know him before that season. We got together, like we gelled. Like, it was just an amazing relationship, kind of stuff. And it was actually like when all that break was happening with the COVID shutdown, when they sent us back home that month, whatever that was, like 3 years ago. And it was really tough because you're navigating that at the time. You're navigating a coaching change, and like I said, I'm still really close buddies with them. And you had to get the kids focused again. Right. So we did the same thing. We did a mini training camp. We did all that stuff. And it worked out well. Like we ended off the season with a good record. I think we were like 17-9 or 17-10 or something like that with the same group of guys, and got knocked out of the second round of like the abbreviated playoffs when we was like best of 3. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's not fun. But at the same time, you got to get off the mindset of what happened and move forward to the next step, which is getting guys ready to play hockey.
Did you make a lot of moves this year, or did your team bring in a lot of new players towards deadlines or anything like that?
Yeah, so we normally make very little trades at the deadline. Like in our league, now that I don't know how much dealings you guys had with trades on your side, but there are some crazy numbers being thrown out for players, like absolute crazy, and we want no part of that. Like there's some players that get paid, some players that get a car, some players that get a condo. Like again, some of these owners are billionaires, right? Millionaires, right?
Yeah.
To me, I'll be honest with you, I don't want any of our players ever having that. Like I will not take a player. Like if it's against us, another team, and we can match it to get the player, I won't take him. Yep. And the reason is because unfortunately these guys have big mouths for the majority of them. And if you give Timmy something, Johnny knows.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And to be honest with you, that is a culture killer, like an absolute culture killer, because then they're like, well, coach got him a condo and didn't get me a condo, and coach got that guy a stick and didn't get me a stick. And I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like already you create that animosity, right? So, I mean, to go back to your question, Grego, like we made actually 6 trades in the first month, which if you can imagine, shook up our room. Like guys didn't know if they were coming, if they were going. We had one guy that we brought in, signed him. He didn't even play a game, and we traded him. And it's super tough because you have guys on pins and needles, especially younger guys too, rookie guys and all that kind of stuff. And so we made 6 trades early on. We kind of got the room settled. We're good. We made 1 trade at the deadline for an older forward to give us some playoff experience and help us out. Good, right shot, good goal scorer, proven goal scorer in this league. And we traded a depth defenseman for him. And I think that we had that chat with the defenseman on sending the guy over to another team, and he actually called us. He goes, "Can you trade for me back so I can come back next year?" And and that stuff to me, it's like it's awesome in a way because you're like, wow, like we had an impact. The program, that kid wants to come back. Like even though and it's funny because the first year we won the championship, we traded a guy who was really tight with our team and our billet and our community. We traded him at the deadline because at that point we didn't think we needed him, and then we thought like we needed to upgrade for somebody else. They upped the lineup for a forward, and we could expense a D. We traded for him back, and he was the one that got the apple on the national championship winning goal. Nice. So it's full circle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Sometimes the storybooks are just written, so it's kind of cool.
I bring it up because you're a detail oriented guy. You hammer the team in with what you want them to do, and then they get set. When you bring in a new guy later in the year, how do you get them up to speed?
Yeah, so great question. So the first thing we do, I run them through an orientation, and we talk about our vision, values. Same thing we talk about our team with day one at camp. So he understands right off the hop what our fundamentals are, like what we value, right? What we preach. And then what we do is we spend 1 day with him per structure, per system, or per zone. So I'll spend 1 day with him on the D zone, 1 day on the neutral. So I'll walk him through our PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. I'll walk him through the same camp. Like, it's a mini training camp for him, right? Or the new players, essentially. But the one thing I tell these guys is that, listen, like, I'm not looking at you to be an absolute expert of our systems and our structure yet. What I want you to do is I want you to play to your identity. The reason we traded for you is X, right? You bring this to the team. I want you to play to your identity. I want you to be comfortable. And you, me, and the other staff, and also our other players, will work on you with, adjustments and set plays and all that kind of stuff. Because, I mean, you can't get these guys drinking from a fire hose, right? Their attention span is like 135 characters. What's Twitter, right? So like, but that's what it is, right? Like, our pregame chats are quick. They're impactful. They're point form. They're not stories. And like, even our video sessions, when we do video twice a week with our team, our video sessions don't go past 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes total time. So I have like maybe 6 minutes of clips, 10 minutes total time, because you start losing them and they start looking at butterflies and squirrels and stuff like that. And you're like, you can't, you got to keep them on par.
Yeah.
I got to work on that for sure. I think in my first game, I almost had him late in the intermission during my speech in the room.
Yeah. You know what? It's everyone has like their different philosophies. Like, I always look at things and I say like in an intermission, like I'll summate something that happened, that, grade 20 or whatever. And then I'll do one thing per zone. Like, O zone, we have more time up high. Let's bring 3 up to the blue line. Neutral zone, hey, D to D's great, but our center support's not great. We got to correct that. And then, defensive zone, hey, they're coming at us 2-1-2 as an example. Let's get that center bump or a wing or reverse in there. And I'll kind of just put it on that and then leave them with a little bit of a pump up, right? Get them going for that next one. It's like short, it's impactful, and you hammer out the details on the bench if you need.
Love it.
The last thing is, you're a big pre-scout guy.
Huge.
What do you think are a couple of the most impactful things you look for in a pre-scout for your next game?
Great question.
Great question, Craig. Wow.
These are this is for me, not the viewers.
Yeah, this is I love this stuff. I love this stuff. So we actually have 2 big games this weekend. We played Leamington, which is a 4-point game because we're 4 points behind them. And then you have Milton, who's another 4-point game because they're behind us, right? And we got a couple games in hand. So the first thing I look at, honestly, is tendencies. What are they doing consistently? And there's a lot of tells that I look at. And again, when you watch video, it depends on how you watch it. But I look at little things like, where their strong side D is, like on a line entry. Are they squeezing? Are they holding dot lines? Because that's going to change my line entry routes, right? I'm either going to attack the goal line, or I'm going to have a guy, our F1 attack the heels and do a slip pass. It really just depends on where their line rush or where their defensive zone structure is, right? When they go back to pick up pucks, are they a rim team? So I watch 15, 20 minutes, a video in the defensive zone only. So I'll go to Instat, I'll cut only D zone clips for a team that we're looking at. I'll look at every time they retrieve a puck. And I look at the percentages. Is it 90% rims? Well, fantastic. That means they're teaching rims. Is it 50-50 between center bumps and rims? Well, then it's probably center bumps, but the guy's really timid until picking up pucks, so they're rimming it anyway because that's the auto response, right? So it really just depends on that. Like, that's the tendencies I look for. And then, based on that, I look at how goals are scored or scoring chances for and against, right? What are the breakdowns? Do they play a man-to-man zone coverage, or do they play, man-to-man or zone coverage, right? So those are the things that I look at. And then because our guys are trained so well, we adjust our game plan to talk about that. Like, one of the things that a lot of teams do now, and especially in the NHL, is they shrink the strong side of the defensive zone, right?
Yeah.
It's so tight. So, going into Saturday, the team we're playing does the same thing. So, what we're doing, if that puck's in a battle below the goal line, it's a hard rim to our weak side defense who's already cheating there. And then my F1, F2, and F3, they fill a layer, right? So we basically break up the O zone into 3 layers, right? Top of the circle and to the blue line, basically dot or like bottom of the circle, top of the circle, and then kind of goal line area, right?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
you do is all 3 players, one has to fill each zone. So F3 you fill high zone, F2 you fill middle, F1 you basically just hunt that puck, either strong side or weak side post.
Right.
And just from there, that little bit of pre-scout and that structure will give us some amazing chances on net, right?
Yep.
That's kind of the things that we look at. But I would say I'm pretty lucky because my wife doesn't kill me, because for games like that, I'm probably doing like 2-3 hours of pre-scout, like looking at
Sure.
all that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
to be successful, you have to be the most prepared to get the players prepared.
Yeah.
Right?
Love that.
Yep. Yep.
The actual execution of the pre-scout, how long does it take you?
Depends because in the playoffs it's a lot longer, because I hammer down everything. In the regular season, because you play teams 4 times in our own conference, some of them don't really change. So the pre-scout, like if I'm playing them for the 3rd or 4th time, the pre-scout, like I'll look at it, but if I see some of the same tendencies, it'll take half the amount of time. So it may take an hour versus 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sorry, but how long does it take you to explain it to the boys?
Oh, I don't know, 30 seconds, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's
you put in all those.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Because like again,
point form.
But you still want I break down my pre-scout like in the offensive zone. I break it out to how we want to forecheck, what our line rush routes are, and then what are some of our O-zone rotations. Right? What are we looking for? Neutral zone is how we regroup, how they regroup, what our forecheck is, what their forecheck is. Right? Our D zone is how they forecheck us. How do we want to retrieve pucks? What's the plan there? Like, you know what I mean? And then if I have to make adjustments, I'm making adjustments in game, on bench. Like I don't even wait between periods. Like I'll switch up my control breakout. I'll switch up like everything in the middle of a play. I don't care. And that's guys can adjust that way.
Good for you.
2-3 hours and then 30 seconds or a minute. Yeah. Shout out your wife. Definitely. An angel. I want to unselfishly ask you about kids. So we develop kids outside of the teams we coach. It's what we do. When kids show up to your team at your level, what are some things that you think are missing that you're like, oh man, I got to break
only
this.
Somebody told them.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the kids missing when they show up at your level usually?
So it's interesting. Like I would say at our level, and it's even staying at our level, even trading for guys on other teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's a massive disconnect in like communication. Like communicating is the biggest thing in any sport, in life, to be honest. You think about all the problems you had in relationships in the past, or fights with a spouse or whatever, like half that's communication based, right? So it's the same thing with the kids. Like I don't like the beaver taps, right? The beaver taps kill me calling for pucks, like calling him, you know what I mean? Like little things like that. I also think like the biggest thing for that is just not understanding, like and maybe it's different because again, I'm a very detailed, structured person.
Yep.
I don't think people really teach structurally what a D zone looks like, what everybody's job is within a structure. Like every winger knows that they got to be around the boards or they got to cover their D man, but like what happens if that D dives? You know what I mean? Like there's a gap, and I think we do a lot of like video, and because everybody learns differently. You have people that are visual learners. I have people that can learn from a PowerPoint, but then don't like video, but then like doing it in person. So communication's one. I mean, structural play is two, I would say. And three, honestly, is teaching players to trust their shot, to rip it through goalies. Like I cannot stand the amount of guys who like we had a game last weekend. And I walked in the dressing room because so I keep track of like stats during games, and one of them is TOs. And I asked the guys, I'm like, how many guys received a pass without calling for it? My entire team does this.
Yep.
Okay. We had like 4 TOs between the goal line and the dots in the offensive zone.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what that is? You guys are trying to make Instagram plays, right? Trying to go back to this field, whatever, rather than coming down and trying to rip it through a goalie. Like, trust your shot. You know what I mean? Like, and blow it through the mesh. Don't shoot to put it on net. do everything with a purpose. And I think that's a big one. Like we do a lot of shot drills, and we have rules. Like we don't make a pass below the hash on our line rush entries. You know what I mean? Like we want guys shooting. We just want guys finishing at the net.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the last one is stopping on pucks.
Yes, I figured you would say this.
Oh man, like I don't have any gray hair, but and I don't just for men. It just luckily I got knocked on wood. But like,
not a big deal.
Honestly, it's absolutely crazy the guys that come up to us from AAA, even other junior A teams, and they just swing and rollerblade and don't stop on puck. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you doing? It's actually worse for you.
Right.
It's actually worse. You're taking yourself away from the play to try to get back in it. You've moved yourself 10, 15 feet away. And that to me is just like structurally with kids. I think everyone starts with good intentions, but to continuously hammer on guys actually stopping on pucks,
yes,
like blue in the face.
Rollerblades. What a term. That is that was the one that I was expecting to hear from you, was that these guys come up, they've got so much skill.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no issue with them doing the Michigan.
There's no skating problems. There's no
drag release problems.
No drag release problems. No spinorama pass problems. But yeah, I'm sure the simple stick on puck, stop and start, stop facing the man, he stops, you stop, all that stuff is it's not there.
It's also like the intricacies of the game, like too. Like if you're using coverage, having your toes face east to west versus north and south, like your toes shouldn't be facing goal line or blue line. They should be facing the east and west, right? Like that's something small. Like you'll hear me yell toes.
Interesting,
right?
That's a great line.
Like that, you know what I mean? I'll just yell toes. Like I would yell keywords on our bench that just tune guys in, right? Stick on puck. Do you know how many guys go stick on puck, palm up? That's the worst thing to do, right? Like think about it, for example. Like if you go stick on puck to puck, like palm up, and somebody pushes, you have zero strength this way.
Right.
If you go this way, there's so much more stability and strength, and your ability to poke pucks and actually move and push guys to corners is way better, right? Doing this automatically teaches guys. I call it the Harry Potter because I've magic once, but like I guys do this, and they just swipe and swipe and swipe, and I'm like, it's Harry Potter with his magic wand, just you know what I mean? Like, it just to me. So those are like the little things. Like palm up, palm down is completely different.
Yes. Palm up, palm down. Incredible. These are some great details. These are some great details. Yeah, hopping on a bench is I'm assistant coach of the U10s, new head coach with the Predators. There's you start to look at skill development differently, because I've been just a pure teach the skating, teach the hands, teach the creation,
teach the stop on pucks.
There's so many
skill. Does that count as a skill?
I know. You think about different things as a coach. You think about this. You think about the stop and start. You think about stop passing below the hash marks on his own entry. Like the things that drive you nuts are so different. Instead of, no, the puck needs to move first when you're cut back. Like you're thinking so differently as a skill coach than you are as a head coach or an assistant coach on a bench.
There is a massive difference. Like even our skill guy, like we talk about like what skill drills we want to run, and like a lot of our drills are repetitive game situational stuff. Like even the drills that we run in practice, they're not just standard 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s or whatever. We actually have situational drills that we design, right? Like, I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. Like coaches are the best thieves,
of course.
Right? We steal drills, we steal whatever. But like, I mean, to me, I look at it and I'm like, the best practice for us is actually game situational stuff. And we'll talk about like diving to the goal line with a puck offensively, punch turning, getting back up the wall, climbing the wall. Like the one thing too, like for you guys and like minor hockey is getting kids to take their first 3 strides when they have the puck. I cannot tell you how many guys get that puck on and off their stick and they don't realize they got 7-8 feet of white ice ahead of them that they can attack.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Understand your surroundings, hit the white ice, attack the game, right? And then if you have to move, attack a defender. Right, attack a defender, opens up a lane somewhere else. Right, so those are just some of those like little intricacies. But you're right, like you see games very different as a skills coach versus a head coach.
Sure, for sure.
Your skills coach, is he on the bench or is he? Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
That's
he's
great.
our assistant RD coach. He also runs his own like hockey school, and he's got like a skating treadmill too. So the guys go see him and all that kind of stuff, which is nice. But yeah, no, he's first year in our league. He was a head coach of the 2007 Barrie Colts team that went to the OJHL Cup. So
Nice.
he knows what he's doing, which is nice too. And younger guy like me, he's 32. I'm 36. So
Beauty.
Nice. What a program you guys have.
appreciate
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
A lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's like it takes effort, right? Like, and that's the hard part. I think a lot of guys, and like, I've coached with some pretty cool guys, and even the guys, like the guy that I coached with that had the Team Canada head coach job was Bruce Richardson. And I mean, you don't have time today, but maybe podcast 35 or whatever. But he was actually like the leading scorer of that Danbury Trashers team.
Mm.
Dude, like the stories we got, oh man.
Unreal.
But like, and it's crazy because, I look at it and there's a lot of guys that as coaches, like it's the same thing. Like there's a bunch of guys that play pro hockey, come back and they open up a skill school or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yep.
at some point you lose a love for the game a little bit because it comes like strenuous, right? Like you bank on a paycheck. And I think as a coach, like if you don't really enjoy like developing people, hanging out with them, getting them to a better spot,
Yeah.
it's not just about winning games or championships. Like I said, it's about developing people and like those relationships. Like I've seen my kid's almost 2 years old. All the guys that we won championships with, every time they come back to the rink, my kid fist bumps them because he knows them.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is what it's about.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Unreal. No, another clip.
Yep.
This one's been full of them. Camps, appreciate your time. Appreciate the insight from Hockey Canada. Some
Yep.
great takes out there. I'm sure Grego picked up a few things to help out the Preds down the stretch too.
100%. 100%. Gonna steal it all.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need anything, man, shoot me a text, give me a call, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
happy to come out or whatever. You guys want to come up, obviously jump on practice or whatever. It's funny. We're looking at hopefully next year doing like a weekend thing for the kids where like a kid, like we'll go send our bus to go pick up a kids team. They'll come up, they'll practice with like our team. Like I'll run a practice for them and then they get tickets to the game Friday night or something like that. So
Nice.
we just want to get more people involved, and Collingwood's a great place. And I think those experiences for those kids are pretty cool.
That's an awesome idea.
Unreal.
Awesome. Yeah.
Looking
Thanks a
forward
lot,
to that.
Camps.
No worries, guys. I appreciate you having me out here. It's been a blast, and hopefully this one doesn't get deleted.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll try not to. Thanks for watching, everybody.